Okay, I'm back with another video. This is going to be the start of the reloading process for the Tikka 223 Remington. I'm going to hopefully do everything start to finish with this. This will be sort of an update to my reloading process for how I do things at the moment. Stuff's changed since my original reloading process video. I've altered a few of the steps. So let's go over how I do things. Now we're starting with new brass. I scrapped the idea of using the factory brass. The factory Fiocchi brass was crimped as well. Not that that poses much of a problem. Simply remove the crimp if necessary. You can still punch the primers out just fine. Never had any problem with that with any of the Fiocchi cases, but I decided to get some new brass, start from scratch. So that's what we'll do here. The components are cellular and bellet brass, Spear 52 grain hollow point varmint projectiles, and I'll be using 2206H ADI powder. I haven't done up a load chart yet, but I'll get to that in the next step. But just to quickly go over the process, I'm looking over here and sort of back here all the time. I've got stuff written out on the computer screen here. This camera / phone is mounted in a little holder up slightly to the right of what I've got written on the computer here. The original process that I had back then was tumble if necessary. That obviously would only apply to already fired cases, stuff like you'd fired factory ammo in your gun, or you'd purchased one's fired brass. But that doesn't apply here because we're using new components. Then obviously anneal. This is new brass. I'm not going to anneal it on the first firing or before the first firing. So obviously the first thing we want to do is we're going to run the cases through a full-length sizing die to start with, even if we're just running the mouths over the expander ball of the case, just purely to ensure that they're round, properly round. I've done that before. I've had cases that were that badly dinged that running them over the expander ball didn't fix them enough. You had to physically run them up into the die fully so that the neck would get sized down and then bring them back over the expander ball to make sure that they're actually perfectly round. But we'll see. I'll probably run them into the full length sizing die anyway. So obviously lube them first, run them into the full length sizing die. This is where things have changed again. Originally I'd tumble them, dry tumble them. I don't do that anymore. I purely do ultrasonic case cleaning. The reason I do ultrasonic case cleaning is instead of then having to wipe any of the dry tumbling media dust off of the cases after dry tumbling them, now I can just put them on a towel, roll them, chuck them straight into a dehumidifier, not a dehumidifier, a dehydrator, and then just leave them in there for 3 hours or so on the low or high setting, whatever you want. Then just rip them out after that and they're ready to go again. It just saves a lot of manual handling of the brass, in my opinion anyway. The reason I don't do wet stainless steel media tumbling is because I don't want to risk getting a pin left inside a case and then sticking it into my amp annealer and then basically cooking the amp annealer once it superheats that pin and it melts its way down in there. Also, to me, stainless steel media tumbling, even though it's better, produces a better finished looking case. It's not necessary. The case doesn't have to be shiny and polished to work good. That's not how brass works in your chamber. Also, that adds back in, you then have to tumble the cases in a rotary sifter to get the stainless steel media out of them. Again, I want to reduce handling of the brass as much as possible to make things quicker and simpler. And it is very hot here. I'm sweating like crazy. After they come out of the dehydrator, the next step is to trim them. I'll trim the new brass. I'll pick a few just out of the bucket of brass. I'll grab a handful, measure them, if any of them are close to needing to trim, I'll reference a reloading manual for the maximum case length. I'll check that on that handful of brass. If they're good to go, then I'll just reload them as is. If not, I'll trim them all down, and I'll try and trim them to a length where each case is then the same length. So I'll pick that same handful of brass, I'll find the shortest one, and then I'll trim them all to that one length. That way they're the one length, even if that's shorter than what the manual says the trim to length is. That doesn't really matter, because they're all going to grow back anyway, but at least then they're all growing at the same rate, and when they need trimming again, I can just go through and trim them all. I don't have to grab a handful, measure them all again to check them. I just go, yep, that needs trimming, do them all at once. After the trim, chamfer and deburr. Obviously that's done in the same step, because I have the Lyman case prep center, whatever it's called. And it's just two little things. I've got them set up next to each other. And clean primer pockets. Obviously, again, new components don't need to do it, but that would be done with the chamfer and deburr, because that's also another little attachment on the Lyman case prep center. After that, prime cases. Usually I leave the priming of the cases until I'm going to finalize the load. So what I mean is then load it completely through until it's a complete piece of ammunition. So prime, powder charge, and cedar projectile. That's usually how I do it, purely because here in Australia, as soon as you put a primer in the case, it is then considered to be live ammunition and then has to be locked up. You can't just leave the brass then sitting out. It has to then be locked in a locked receptacle, same as fully complete ammunition. That's usually why I do it that way. Usually also what I'll do is, if I'm loading a test of say 20 rounds, what I'll do is I'll only prime the 20 rounds and do it that way, and that way I can, once I get back from the range, I can leave the little MTM case ammo box sitting out. It then doesn't have to be locked away again, because there's no primed brass. It's all once fired or just prepped brass. But yeah, obviously after priming the cases, we're going to charge the cases with powder using the RCBS Charge Master Light, seat the projectiles, and then label them. I think you've seen how I label them. I'll just do a list up on my phone. Number 1 corresponds to powder charge such and such. 2 corresponds to powder charge such and such, and just go down to however many I'm testing at the time, and that usually gets it done. But yeah, this is sort of an intro to that, what's going to be coming up. So the first step that I'll be doing on this new brass is lubing and then sizing it. God, it is hot. It's supposed to be 34 degrees today. I don't know what the humidity is, but it feels pretty humid. Okay, so that's the quick little intro. I'll see is when I get to lubing and sizing this brass. I'm hopefully going to try and get this done over the next couple of days, and then I may be able to go out. I haven't checked the range calendar yet, but I may be able to go out this Sunday. So what's that, 3 days time, and then test these rounds, but I may not be able to, just depending on what they've got organised at the range. Okay, anyway, I'll catch you in the lubing and sizing video. See yous. Okay, we're back doing the 2D3 reloading process. I made a mistake. I thought I bought the celery and billet, but I bought the PPU. I was looking at celery and billet online, and I found this at I think it was roughly the same price, maybe slightly cheaper. And that way I could buy the projectiles and the brass from the same place. Anyway, I'm using the Hornady one-shot spray case lube. I haven't had a problem with this so far. A lot of people reckon they have, but I'm yet to have any problems with it. Shake this up real good. Going to make sure that you mix the actual lubricant into the carrier. We basically just spray this from all 4 sides. At a downward angle so you get some in the case mouth as well. thing. And that's them done. Now we'll leave them sit for 3 to 5 minutes and we'll get back to the actual sizing process. I'll see you once I set the gear up over there. Okay, we're back for the sizing process. I've got the Forster 2 to 3 die in the press, brass lubed sitting here, and the ultrasonic cleaner basket sitting here. So we'll just go from here into the press, run them through the die, and if I don't drop them, into the basket. Here to the press, die, and into the basket. And that falling over was the wicked edge arm falling down and hitting the counterballast oil, which is sitting next to it, which is right next to the camera. Okay. We'll do 10 to 15 of these, but this is basically the process. Just running the cases through the die to again make sure the case mouths are completely round. The expandable on the Forster die is right up top of the die anyway. It's not down the bottom of the die near the opening like the other, like any Lee, Reading, RCBS, Hornady dies. So you basically got to run these cases into the die with the Forster die all the way anyway, just to get the expandable. So you may as well run them all the way in if you're doing this. So this is a pretty quick process. And then I'll go in here. Off camera, I'll process the rest of these, and I'll also process the other 50 cases as well. I've got 100 pieces of brand new brass. One thing that annoys me with the Forster press, or two things, but it's one of them, is sometimes you catch the head of the case on the jaws. If you don't just lift it straight up, if you sort of drift to the side, it all can pick the case up. And then you catch it on the jaw and you're sort of tugging on it and trying to get the case out of the jaws. Okay, that's probably enough of these anyway. Okay, I've sized those other cases and we're back for the ultrasonic cleaning, which I've got set up here now. I've just used some hot water, squirt a dishwashing liquid, about an 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid in the water. I didn't even have to fill this up all the way, and all 100 cases are submerged. I'm not going to do the degas function on this. I'm just going to set the timer for which is 30 for the longest setting. Again, it's hot water. The actual function of the ultrasonic cleaning will heat the water anyway. This is pretty warm water to start with to help with the cleaning of the lubricant off the cases. I'll put this lid on and I'll start cleaning. There we go. It makes a really annoying noise for the camera. It's not that loud, you can't hear it from a room away, but it is annoying to be standing here with it. So once this is done, these will go into the dehumidifier at that point. I've set this for half an hour. That should be plenty to clean the lubricant off the cases. The next step is just to set a towel out, bring the basket out, rinse the cases under normal cold water just to clean any stuff off them and to help neutralise that acid that's in here, the citric acid. And then once that's done, tip them onto the towel, roll them around a bit, get most of the bulk of the water off them, and then straight into the dehydrator to dry them off for 2 to 3 hours. Okay, I'll catch us back when this step here is done. Okay, we're back after the ultrasonic process. I've put the brass in here, I put them on a towel, rolled them around a bit, which gets the bulk water off the case, the outside of the case. What that's really for is to stop like water droplet marks forming on the outside of the brass when they're drying in here. If you don't do that, get the bulk of the water off them, you'll end up with spots like watermarks all over the outside of the cases. Other than that, we don't care about the outside of the case being dry. I mean, it has to be dry, but that's not what we're worried about. We want the inside of the case to be completely dry for when a primer and then particularly powder goes into the case. Because if it's not dry when powder goes into the case, then that's going to affect your burn rate, and that could potentially cause a dangerous situation similar to a squib load. If the powder doesn't burn correctly, if you get a secondary detonation effect, then that could potentially be dangerous. So hopefully we'll avoid that. I typically run them for about 3 hours. I don't like running them longer than that because they do get hot in here. I don't think that they get hot enough to affect the hardness of the case head. I've never had a problem with it, but I typically just try and run them on the low setting for about 3 hours, and that limits how hot they get, because you don't want the case head getting too hot that it gets then soft. You don't want to anneal the cases essentially in here. They only hit about 70 degrees at maximum on the hottest setting, I think anyway, but still you can anneal even at low temperatures if they're at a low temperature for long enough. So maximum 3 hours or so, don't go any longer than that. Okay, I'll come back once this is done, probably tomorrow or the day after. Tomorrow's Australia Day, so I'll be out barbecuing or picnicking or something, so I'll probably come back to this Saturday. Okay guys, I will turn this on now, which is just a simple push button. Low setting, I'll go up to the high setting, and I'll set a timer for 3 hours, and I'll come back to this, turn them off, let them cool down. I'll visually inspect like 10 or so cases inside to make sure there's no water droplets left inside them, and that should be it. Because they're going to sit for a few more days anyway, they should dry out. This will dry them, but even if they weren't dry completely, like 100%, they should dry out, because it's going to be a day or so before I come back to them for the trimming and then chamfer deburr process. I talked about that in the video, the intro video for this. What's going to be this? May not need to trim this new brass. I'll check the measurements on a few of them, 20 or so, and make sure they're under max length. If they are, then I'll just load them and then fire them. If they're longer, I'll trim them, but even if they don't need to be trimmed, they do need to be chamfer and deburred. So regardless of if I trim them or not, you will see me back here at the chamfer and deburr process. Okay, I'll catch you at that. Okay, we're back here at the trimming process now. I measured a few of these up, a few of them a bit longer than the trim to length. There's a couple that are slightly like a couple of thou shorter as well, but we'll trim them to the trim to length. Any that are shorter can just grow on the next firing. I've already got it set up to the trim to length, which is 1.750 inches. I've already done a couple here. I'll do a few more on camera for you, and that should give you the idea. I've used this quite a bit before. I've even done a little review on it. The Lyman Case Trim Express, I think it's called. It's got a dial which indicate roughly a thousandths, which is pretty accurate, because I trimmed one case, measured it, it came out to 1.743. I then just rotated 7 marks on here, it's bang on 1.750, so these are pretty accurate. But you can trim with anything. I did it for a decade or more with a little Lee cutter and lock stud. Just chuck the lock stud up in a drill, chuck a case in, zzz, and off you go. Anyway, I'll do a few of these for you. Just a little Tupperware thing to throw the cases in here, and they're done. Normally I wouldn't set the cases up in a tray like this. The only reason I did was because I made sure to put a few that needed actual trimming to the front when I measured them. trimming to length to make sure they're all consistent. And I'll just keep firing them until I get to the max case length. I think that one was quite a bit longer than the others so far. This makes it a pretty quick process. That one doesn't even touch. Okay, that should be enough for you to get the idea. Okay, I'll see you back here in the next one after I get the rest of these done. Okay, we're back here to do the chamfer and deburr on these cases, seeing as I've trimmed them and they now have a burr, both the internal and external on the neck. This is the Lubing case trim express, pretty easy to use. Chamfer and deburr tools, prominent pocker reamer if I want one. The small prominent pocket reamer is down there. I don't plan to ream the primer pockets on these. They should be fine as they are. We'll get straight into this. This is a pretty quick operation. Just second on there, and that's that case done. And then over the brush to make sure there's no brass shavings left in the neck. Pretty quick operation, goes fairly fast. You don't have to press down hard on these, they cut really quick. This is more just to save your hands the work. Again, anything that you can get that's makes this work faster or easier, in my opinion, is worth it. So I've got 100 pieces of this to do. I will catch up with this in the next step, which would now be priming brass, which I'll do for the, like I said previously, I think it was either in the intro or one of the first videos, I only prime what I need at the time. That way I can leave the cases laying out. So once they're primed, they're considered ammunition here in Australia and they have to be locked up. Okay, I will catch you in that next video then. Okay, we're back at the loading bench for the priming stage. I've got some primers in here, although I will have to add a couple more. So we'll get on and do it. This is just an old Lee hand primer. She's getting a bit loose in all the parts and everything. I probably should replace this at some stage. If I do, I might go for one of the, like the RCBS Universal primer, which has got the jaws that move in. Anyway, we'll get this done. I should be wearing safety glasses to do this, but as long as you angle the case away from yourself, you should be pretty good. Okay, get this done. I have changed my mind in how I'm going to do this loading process. I'm not going to do a subtlety test with this. I'm purely going to load 0.2 grain increments starting at 26.2 grains and going up to 27.2 grains if I can, which is 0.2 of a grain over book max. I found the AUI load data typically doesn't line up with what they advertise for velocities. although I highly doubt I'll be able to get 27.2 grains of 206H into the case due to probably being a compressed charge. This is a pretty quick process. I much prefer doing it with a hand priming tool rather than on the press. I have primed on the press before when I've found that I don't have one of the specific shell holders for this priming tool, but yeah, I don't like doing it that way. I find this to be much easier, quicker, and you definitely have a lot better feel for the pressure when you're seating the primer in the case. Sometimes if it's just not aligned properly, you'll feel it immediately with this, whereas with the press you risk crushing the primer. See, like that, it's just not aligning, but I straightened it up and it went straight in. Like you wouldn't, it's a lot harder to feel that on the press than it is with the hand priming tool. Okay, I'll get these done up. I've also had the Chargemaster light warming up for about half hour now, so it should be good to go. Although, to be truthful, I haven't found any difference really in plugging the Chargemaster light in and calibrating and going straight away to letting it warm up. See, 2 more. Just gonna reload this tool. There we go. 2 more individual primers. We are good to get. Okay, that's that process done. So I'll load 2 failers, 26.2, 26.4, 6, 8, 27, 27.2 if I can get them in. Okay, I'll catch us once I've got this powder chuck. Okay, I'm back. I've got the first of the fouling charges thrown here, 26 grains. I'm just going to grab this funnel and change out the stem on it for a better stem, and then I'll dump this into this case. This will automatically throw the next charge. I've calibrated this off camera, of course. If you've got one of these, you use the manual, will show you how to do that. It's a very simple process. Takes about 40 seconds or something like that. See, this 26 grain charge is, I don't know, a quarter of the way up the neck already. So I'm a bit dubious. I might have to pour these quite a bit slower to even get 26.6 to fit in the case. Just going to wait for this to return a reading for me. I'm going to cancel it just so it doesn't throw another one of them when I put this back on. I'll pour these quite a bit slower. Give them a few taps with the funnel. See how that goes in comparison. That's at the bottom of the neck, but yeah, I highly doubt I'm going to be able to get I don't even think I'll get 27 grains in here, to be honest. Okay, so now we'll throw 26.2, and this will be the first of the actual rounds to test for accuracy. Okay, instead of making you sit here and watch this, I might actually record all of this and then I'll just speed it up in the editing software. Or I could just cut it out. It's a lot easier work for me to just stop recording and then step over to the seating process. So I might actually do that. Well, it'll be easier for me, easier in the video edit. Okay, I'll get this done. And I should have poured that a bit slower, but I forgot. Because I'm a numpty. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next seating process, which will be very short. Okay, we're back for the seating process. Sit a case in there very carefully. Sit a projectile on top and guide it up into the seating die. Hopefully a bit better than I just did then. Trying to do this without getting in the way of the camera. It's quite a chore. There we have one of the loaded fouling rounds. I've already done one. Setting the die up. Mark it for a fouling round. Don't know if you can see that on the camera. There we go, F for fouling. Okay. The Chargemaster light just finished the last of the next series of cases. Okay, so I'll fully seat these through on camera. These are the 26.2 grain charges. Getting this aligned and to stay fairly straight in the press. Bit of a challenge with these. I usually just, as I've done on the phone, I've written up a series. So these get marked with a 1 for that, and I'll go in the next slot of the MTM case there. I might shoot these round robin when I go to the range with them. I was going to try and go out tomorrow, but I don't think I am now. I think I'll wait till the next weekend. Mark that up with a 1. It's a bit awkward having the camera and then the light right next to me like that. Mark that one with a 1. I'll probably only do this first series. Charges, seating on camera. And then I'll just do the rest off camera. The reason I'm doing this video reloading process like this is, I know a lot of people, like the big YouTubers won't do it anymore because the rules on YouTube. I don't really care if I get banned on there, so it doesn't really mean much to me if they ban me. But at least this is like an overview process for someone who hasn't reloaded before if they happen to come across it. These are a flat base, a spear, 52 grain varmint hollow points. they've got quite a large hollow point in them. The size of the projectile that they are. Okay, so that's the first series, the 26.2 grainers. I'll go up as far as I can. Even the 26.4 grainers, the powder's moving up the neck quite a bit. So I'll do a little recap at the end after I'm done and let you know how far along I got on with the powder charges. We'll be back then.